Debugger is an editor for AppleScript scripts, and so it is chock-a-block with features and shortcuts and things to help you edit and enter text and find your way around big scripts and that sort of thing, and that's what this video is about. So to start with, here's a target script. That is to say, I'm going to enter the text in this script as a way of illustrating some of the things that Debugger does when you're typing text to help you. So let's get started, and I'll start typing. So I'll say on, do your thing, and here's the first thing that Debugger is going to do. It's one of my favorite features. I'm going to type the left parenthesis, and the right parenthesis is typed for me automatically, and the insertion point blinking there, it's between the two parentheses. That way, if I've got any parameters to go in there, it's ready for me to type them. Now, we want to go on to the next line. So what's going to happen here? Do I need to arrow my way past the right parenthesis that's in my way from the blinking insertion point? No, because Debugger understands that this is the delimiter pair and that it's already entered that right parenthesis automatically. So I just typed the right parenthesis, and what happens is we don't get a second right parenthesis. It just moves on past the right parenthesis that already exists. So here I go. Ready? Now, did you notice what else happened when I did that? At the same time that I typed the right parenthesis, the left parenthesis sort of blinked. It was highlighted, and that's to show me I do have a correct pair. On to the next really great feature. So I'm now going to hit return to bring myself on to the next line. Okay, here we go. And look, the end line was inserted for me automatically. Debugger is aware of the fact that AppleScript is all about blocks of code, things that have to be terminated by an end line. So when you hit return to move on to the next line out of a line that requires an end line, the end line is entered for you automatically. So now I've got that block, it's complete, and I'm inside that block ready for the next line. So I'll type script thing, I'll hit return, and you think the end line is going to be inserted, don't you? Yes, it is. There we are. So we have the end line inserted for us automatically. And now I'll do on pad. Now I'm in the right place here. All I had to do was type the left parenthesis. The right parenthesis is entered for me. I'm inside the parentheses. I'll type the S, which is the parameter. Now, here's the next cool feature. From anywhere within the line, I can hold down the command key and hit return. And what that does is it jumps to the end of the line and inserts the return there. So in a single move, I'm going to hit return as if I were at the end of the line. And of course, since this is an on line, the end line is going to be created for me. So I'm holding the command key, I hit return, and poof, I've jumped out of the line, I've created the end line, and now I'm in that block ready for the next line. The next thing I have to type is a repeat block. Now, I could just type the repeat block, but instead I'm going to illustrate yet another way of doing these kinds of things. I'm going to hold down the right mouse button so that I get the contextual menu, and I'm going to use paste clipping. Now, what are clippings? A clipping is a piece of boilerplate text, and Debugger comes with a bunch of boilerplate text for the constructs, the AppleScript language constructs that you're most likely to need. The one that I want is a repeat while construct, so I'll choose that. And it uses placeholders. So it's entered the repeat while and the end line, and there are two placeholders, one for the Boolean expression and one for the code. And you can move between those by typing the tab key. So if I type the tab key, now I've selected the code that goes between inside the repeat block. And if I hit the tab key again, I go back to the expression. So now I'll type the actual expression, which is length of S is less than 2, and I'll hit tab to get myself the next placeholder, and now I'll type the next piece. Set S2. Okay, I'm typing a left parenthesis. The right parenthesis is entered for me. Now I'm going to type a literal string. So I type the double quote. The second double quote is entered for me, and I'm now between those two things. So there's my string. I'm going to type the other double quote, and Script Debugger understands all I'm doing is closing the delimiter, and it shows me this matches the previous delimiter. And now if I move past the right parenthesis, I get a confirmation that I'm still in balance. And I'll just compile all of that. Now, what was my next task? My next task is to enter a call to do your thing. Well, I could type the call to do your thing, but instead I'll just type do ya, and I'll just stop. And what I'll do is I'll ask for code completion. Script Debugger gives me code completion, so I'll hit the escape key. And Script Debugger has looked through the list of things that it knows about, and it sees that earlier in the script I've created this handler, do your thing, and so it says you probably want a call to that, and that's exactly what I do want, so all I have to do now is hit return. And the last thing in my model is a call to display dialog, and to enter that what I'm going to do is just type DD and hit the tab key and watch what happens. What I get is a call to display dialog with placeholders all through it. So now I can type done, hit tab to go to the next placeholder, type OK, and that's all. The remaining placeholder is correct. The default button is OK. So all I have to do now to get out of this is compile the script. And the placeholder is turned into actual text. So that illustrates a whole bunch of the shortcuts that Script Debugger gives you. Now that last thing I did with the DD, let me do it again. That is configurable. So you can make up your own abbreviations and your own boilerplate text that should be typed when you enter those abbreviations, and the place where you do that is in the preferences, in the text substitution preferences. A lot of the other things that I talked about are also user configurable. For example, you remember back here, I entered a clipping. Well, you're allowed to create your own clippings. Incidentally, the clippings also appear here in the clippings menu. Those are the same clippings, and they also appear in the clippings inspector. Here, let me show you the clippings inspector. And you can add your own clippings. All they are is text files in a particular folder, which you can get to easily from the scripts folder. It says open clippings folder. So if you choose that, it'll open the folder and you can add your own clippings. Read the help that comes with Script Debugger, and it tells you all about the properties of a clipping and how you make your own placeholders. Also in Script Debugger, there are a lot of ways to enter text into your script by dragging onto the script. Here's an example. It's very common to want to make a reference to some kind of file that's on disk. So here's a Finder window, and I can just drag a file right into my script. And I'm asked by Script Debugger, well, what is it that you want to do? You can paste the contents of the file, but very often what it is you want to do is make an alias to that file. I just say paste, and presto, I've got an actual working alias to that file. Also, it very often happens that some part of Script Debugger's own interface can be dragged or otherwise caused to be inserted into your script as a shortcut. There are far too many of these for me to list here, but just as an example, here on the right, I've got some kind of inspector that lists running applications. Let's say I want to talk to the Finder. A very fast way of causing that to happen is just drag that reference to the Finder right into my script and let go. It asks me, well, what did you want to do with that? I'd like to paste a tell speaking to the Finder, so I just click paste. Here's an even faster way to do that. I can simply select the Finder line and say paste tell. Poof, just goes right into my script as a tell talking to the Finder. Also, there's a paste tell menu. So I could have done the same thing this way. I could have said paste tell and selected the Finder. And if I keep going out here, I get references to objects within the Finder's world, objects that are part of its object model. So I could just select one. I selected desktop, and so I've wound up with some code that says tell the Finder get the desktop. That's a valid script. I could run that at this point. Now I'd like to illustrate some of Script Debugger's features for navigating long scripts and also for viewing scripts in different ways. So this is a fairly lengthy script, and one thing that can help you with a script that's long like this is the table of contents menu, which is in the navigation bar. It lists all the handlers and other top-level entities in your script, and when you select one, it jumps to it. So I'll jump to another one. Now you may notice that it's displaying the handlers in alphabetical order rather than the order in which they appear in the script. If I want to change that, I hold down the Shift key, and now when I select from the menu, the menu's being displayed in the order in which those things appear in the script. Or I can change this on a global basis. It's a preference. Sort table of contents alphabetically. I can uncheck that, and now what happens is, by default, I'm not holding down the Shift key. By default, I'm seeing the handlers in the order in which they appear, and if I want to see them in alphabetical order, I hold the Shift key down, select from the menu. Now they're shown in alphabetical order. So that's a way of navigating from handler to handler, and there's another way of moving from handler to handler as well. You can say go to next handler and go to previous handler, and there's a shortcut. So you're rapidly going to start using that shortcut as a way of jumping between handlers. You can also jump by line number. You can say view, show line numbers, and line numbers will be displayed on the left side in the thing called the gutter, and then you can say go to line. And you can just go to a particular line number. Because AppleScript is a block-oriented language, it's useful to be able to see where the blocks are and give them some emphasis so that your eye sees them clearly. So if I hover the mouse just over the gutter on the left side of the text area, Script Debugger provides some shading that shows me the blocks, and I can actually click to select a block, and if I keep clicking, I keep moving outward to the next surrounding block. So if I click, then I click, now I've selected the if block, and if I click 3 times, I've got the repeat block, and if I click 4 times, then I've got the handler block that surrounds all of that. So that's a quick way to select a block. You can do the same thing with the edit balance command. Here's a good place to start, because balance moves outwards by delimiters. So I'll say edit balance, it's Command B, so this is a useful shortcut to know. I'll say Command B, and now I've selected that delimited thing, which in this case is curly braces. It's a literal list, and then I'll do it again. That'll move me outward to the next delimited thing, which is the repeat block, and then I'll do it again, Command B, and that'll get me out to the handler surrounding all of that. Finally, there are lots of ways to make your view of the script clearer depending on what it is that you need to see. For example, I've got a rather narrow text area here, and I do have one line which is too long for the narrow text area. Just say view wrap lines. Now that line is wrapping. Or another way to do that, I'll stop wrapping lines. Another way to do that is to use this icon here at the edge of the text area. Now it's wrapping. Now it's not wrapping. So you can just toggle that on and off as you need it. Another great feature, this is especially useful in a script of any length, is that you can split the pane, the editing pane, into more than one area. So you can see different areas of the script simultaneously. So you can say edit, split editor vertically, and you can repeat that as many times as you like. So you see I'm able to scroll within the different panes, and so I can see more than one part of the script simultaneously. If you want to get, you can resize these pieces. If you want to get rid of any of the splits, just click the X. Another way to do this is in fact is how I usually do it. Just use these icons here that are on the edge of the text area. So that's a split. That's a split. And you can even split the other way horizontally. I don't know why anybody would do that, but you can do it. You can really go nuts with this. Sometimes it's useful to be able to see invisible characters. So, for instance, exactly what is it in this line that is contained in the string literal? You can't tell because some of it is white space. So you might want to know, well, what is that white space? Is it a tab character? Is it some number of space characters? I can't tell. Well, in order to find out, you can say View, Show Invisibles. And now what's happening is line endings that are carriage returns, old-fashioned Mac CRs, which is what AppleScript uses, appear as CR. Tab characters are shown as arrows. Well, I'm still not seeing what's inside this white space, so I guess it's not a tab character. Maybe it's a space. And the way to find that out is to say View, Show Spaces. Now spaces are shown as dots, and I see one dot, so I know that's actually one space inside there. You can also show tab stops. The tab stops are the places to which the automatic pretty printing of a compiled AppleScript does its indenting. And if you are a really hot AppleScript programmer and you need to be able to see the actual raw Apple event four-letter codes that lie behind the AppleScript language instead of the English-like terms, you can do that. You can say show raw chevron syntax. And now instead of application, we see class CApp. Instead of selection, we get property cella and so on. Finally, I just want to show you one more editing feature. I probably should have shown this earlier. You can take a stretch of commented text and uncomment it with edit uncomment. Or, just the other way around, you can take a stretch of normal text and comment it out with edit comment. That's very helpful when you're developing a script. So, as you can see, Script Debugger is tailor-made for the kinds of things you're going to need to do when you're working on an AppleScript script.